Welcome to the Ladies Kickin Ass podcast, where we raise our voices and honor the badass achievements of women in the service industry. Get ready for empowering conversations, inspiring stories, and a whole lot of ass-kicking energy. Join us as we redefine what it means to be bold, fearless, and unapologetically YOU, babe. This is your platform, your community, and your source of inspiration. So buckle up, get ready to rock and roll, and let's show this world just how much we can accomplish. Welcome to the Ladies Kickin Ass podcast. Hi, ladies. Welcome back to another episode of Ladies Kickin Ass. We have an incredible story today on the podcast, and I am so excited to be able to introduce you to Gina. Gina has an incredible story around adoption, child trauma. She has an incredible nonprofit now that actually works with children and families that are going through this. I know this is a little bit different than what we typically have on the podcast, and we're really branching out to kind of bring in a conversation around those really hard things that a lot of people aren't talking about. And as most of us as working mom entrepreneurs, we may find ourselves in situations like Gina has found. And I just want people to know that this exists. I want Gina's story to be told. She is an incredible storyteller. She has a TEDx talk that we'll link in the show notes that you must watch. I actually watched it with my teenage daughters, and it was quite fascinating to see what their take was on that and what they took out of it. So it really is a family discussion, and I think it is a really awesome thing to learn about and know that, you know, sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves, or we're judgy of other moms and the way their kids behave, and she must not discipline them or something like that. And I know we don't want to be catty like that, but even if we're thinking it in our brains, we've really got to stop that narrative and really give people grace, because we don't know what is actually going on behind the scenes. I remember as a young mom, and my daughter was trying on these heels at TJ Maxx, and I was like, get out of the shoes. And I kept telling her to put them back and put them back. And I was like, okay, we got to go. We got to put you in the cart. And she just started crying, and I just walked off anyways. And the lady's like, you know, that's not very good parenting. And I was like, I'm at the end of my ropes, you know, so many times. Like, she had no business saying any of that stuff to me whatsoever. You don't know what people are going through. And that's why I think Gina's story is so incredibly important to be told and continue to keep getting out so that people understand that there are things going on behind the scenes. So Gina, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And I'd love for you to give us a little bit of your backstory. Tell us your story around your sons and all of the things that you have been through. I just want to lay the foundation before we get talking about parenting.
Okay. So my husband and I went through 4 years of infertility first. Mostly because that's the free method. Is, you know, you start out with the free method, and then you move on to what's covered by insurance, and then you move on past that, right? So it had nothing to do with adoption being a second choice for us, but really that we had to wait and save up a lot of money to make that happen. It's very expensive. So, but yeah, we finally got to the point where we knew we were meant to adopt, and we went to Guatemala. We got our first son. He was easy peasy. We thought we were such good parents, and we went back to get a second one. And we stayed at a hotel with a bunch of other adoptive families, and they all had these happy hours where we could, you know, get together and meet other adoptive families. And we were all on the same floor, and we saw a bunch of cute little girls there. And I said, oh, if this one's as easy as the last one, we're totally coming back for a girl. And that turned out to not be true. So we were done after the second one, because he came to us cranky. He was neglected by his foster mom before we got him. And we thought, you know, as parents, we're like, okay, well, that's only 6 months, and that's not enough to affect the rest of his life. We were wrong. So he was irritable and cranky when we got him. He screamed the entire 5-hour flight back from Guatemala, making us, the most popular people on the plane. People were like,
Oh,
they shouldn't
yeah.
even let those people adopt. And I was like, okay, we just got him. The kid's in trauma. So it
Oh
was really
gosh.
challenging. Yes, and he never got easier. So we thought, once he got home and he settled into a routine, that he never settled into a routine. He never slept through the night. He didn't sleep through the night until he was 11 years old. At like 18 months, he started throwing meltdown tantrums where he would throw his shoes at me in the car. And while I'm driving down the highway at 55 miles an hour, he's throwing shoes at me as hard as he can over something small like, "Will you play that song on the radio again?" And yeah, I can't control the radio station, so so it was
Yeah.
challenging, and as he got older and bigger, he got more anxious, more violent, more bullied by other kids, and that made him wanna bully other kids, and it was just a nightmare. I was parent to the bad kid, and I was judged by so many other parents, and at the same time, we were seeing therapists, we were trying all different techniques at home, and by 12, things got really scary because that's when police come and get involved. So, at that point, we knew things were really serious. Um, we had still been looking for the right therapist, and he was actually handcuffed at school one day and sent to the juvenile assessment center where they kept him for like 5 hours before I could pick him up. So they wanted to hear what was going on at home. That was the day I thought I would lose both of my kids because he wasn't always honest with people. So we weren't quite sure what he was going to say to these people. And I thought if they take him away, they're going to take away my other son. And, you know, fortunately, he told the truth. They diagnosed him with reactive attachment disorder, which is what we were already suspecting, but we didn't know what to do about it. And so they gave us a list of some therapists, and one of the girls there said she had a friend who worked for this guy who's a world renowned expert, and he's not too far away from us. So we booked a family session, and that turned out to be like the turning point for our family. We now live in peace. It's been a long journey, and I won't say that it was like an overnight solution, but he's now 19 and he's out of high school and he has a job and he's, happy and he's not violent anymore. So we did get to the other side, and I promised at one of the rock bottom moments, I prayed to God, universe, whoever's out there, please, if I ever make it to the other side, I will promise to pay it forward. So that's what we're doing now. We started a nonprofit, and we can talk about that more. But that's our basic story in a nutshell.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. So, when you're going through all of this, did you have a career that you were working in or a business or something? Like how did that impact you personally with that area of your life?
That's a really interesting question because that part destroyed me. I was all about my career. I went to architecture school. I wanted to be an architect since I was like 6 years old, and it's a very demanding field. And
Mhm.
they aren't too happy when you go, "Oh, I have to leave early and pick up my kid at school again, again, again." And so I ended
Yeah.
up basically derailing my career. I started teaching just a couple hours a day just to get out of the house. Like it was barely enough money to pay for his daycare, but I just needed to get away from him for a few hours a day. and
Yeah.
um, and yes, and at that point I discovered I love to teach, so I started teaching college students, and that's my full-time job now. So I'm back on track, but it was almost, I don't even know what the word is, but I was so driven to succeed in my career that this was just like I lost my whole identity.
Yes. That is so good because we have recently been talking about your career or your business that you build and taking that. It's like your identity becomes who you are in that career or who you are
Mhm.
to that business. Or even if you don't have a business, who you are as a mom. And then, like, when those things go away, and I say when because they will, because they're things that you do, they're not you. Oftentimes you will find yourself like, who the hell am I? And so
Exactly.
what did that look like for you when you had to table the career and you found yourself in like, I don't know, when you had a strong identity from being the architect?
Mhm. It was so challenging, depressing. I mean, first of all, I don't know if I went into much detail about my son and his how violent and abusive and angry he got, but he would punch holes in the walls. He would throw lamps, furniture, electronics. He threw the remote control through the TV screen. I mean, I was afraid of him. There was one night he actually punched me in the head while I was asleep because I had taken away his video games 9 hours before that. Who stews on that long? I mean, that is insane. So he came,
Wow.
woke me up in the middle of the night by punching me in the head. And after that, I was afraid to not lock my door at night. But at the same time, he was like a little boy and he's my kid. And I didn't want to, if he needs me, I want to be there for him. So that was really, really hard. And
Yeah.
the fact that I wasn't working in my career as much as I could have, and I wasn't making enough money anymore. And now we're spending all our money on therapists and different programs to try to help him heal. And I got PTSD myself through the process,
Mhm.
and I'm still trying to heal right now. And I'm finally feel like I'm a little bit back on track because I'm working a full time job again, but I still, kind of, I was on the up and up. I was like the next big thing I thought, but not happening
Yeah.
anymore. So,
Sure. Sure. Well, I think it's a beautiful testament that even though it doesn't go the way that you hoped it would or that you thought it would, you are now able to help so many families deal with the things that you have dealt with. So, sometimes I feel like, um, it's not in our sights, but like Jamie Kern
mhm.
Lima always says, redirection is God's protection, or whatever it is that you believe in. And it's things that, like, when you are on the up and up to become the next big architect, there's no way in hell you would have ever known that this is what your real, like, calling and mission in life was going to be. And there's obviously people that need you. So why don't you tell us about your trauma university? I'm sorry, what is your trauma
Trauma
drama
drama,
university?
trauma drama
Yes. Tell us
university.
about that.
Um, Yeah, I like to say it's the club I never wanted to join, but really needed at the time. So I set up the club that none of us want, but to support other parents like me whose kids have gone through trauma. And it doesn't just have to be adoption trauma. Um, Foster care, of course, because they're usually mistreated there, neglect, abuse, but also divorce. If you go through a nasty divorce or if you've left a volatile relationship with your kid, they still have that trauma. And even
Mhm.
though it might appear for a little while that things are great, it may have rewired their brain so that, they start acting out and then it starts getting worse and then it starts getting worse. And then you're like, what is going on? So, if there's trauma, it can actually rewire the brain. So, we've got 4 classes online that are free to talk about why the parenting books don't work, how to get into the right mindset to parent kids with trauma or kids who are like really reactive. My son, if you said the word no, like I walked on eggshells all the time because if I said no, I was afraid he was going to flip out. I was afraid he was going to hurt me or kill me. And, so you had to be really decisive about is this really worth the fight or is it not? And so I
Yeah.
admit I had to let a lot of things slide because I was like, I'm afraid he's going to hurt all of us.
Oh my
So,
gosh,
Trauma John
yes.
University, we have 4 online classes. We also have our own podcast where we interview families like ours. We also have a YouTube channel where we have like quick parenting tips or, little tidbits of information, um, stuff like that. So we've got all sorts of free resources. We just started a new membership where we're going to do Ask the Experts once a month. Just $10 a month to be a member, and you can come and like this month, next week we're doing one with a school advocate. So if you're trying to plan IEPs and 504s, she is your expert. You could go ask her questions. You don't have to hire her right away, but if you find out you need her, then you can do that.
Yeah.
Somebody's hammering next door. I don't know why. I'm very sorry. I'm not at home.
It's okay. I swear I like set it up like Fridays. Fridays are my podcast day. And inevitably somebody is getting their lawn mowed like every Friday morning. It always happens.
Yeah.
Always. It's okay. That's what makes it real, you know?
Yeah. So as a member, you can also have access to our private support board. So you can talk about things that you might not want to talk about in front of your friends and family. Things that are going on in your house that are a little scary. And, we understand, we've been there. So we hope that we're going to help a lot of people. We also just came out with, and it's on Amazon right now, our little special needs parenting journal.
Yay!
So I actually have a video that explains how to use it and everything, but it keeps track of medication and hygiene and your schedule and all of that stuff, routine, nutrition. And then I always like to end on a positive note because when your kid is beating you up regularly, it's hard to stay in love with them. So I wrote
Yeah.
3 things I like about my kid and 1 thing I'm proud of that they did today. And that is sometimes the hardest part, but at least you leave it on a good note and you go to bed going, okay, I'm doing my best and I still love him and I'm going to get up tomorrow and do it again. So,
Yes. Oh, I admire you so much because
thank you.
man, you know, we were talking before we turned this on too about in your TEDx talk, it really hit me hard when you said, people can find themselves in an emotional or physically abusive relationship. And you can walk away from those relationships. You can leave. But when you have that relationship with your child, that's a whole nother dynamic. How
Yes.
common is this reactive attachment disorder? And are there varying levels of this?
Yes.
Explain to me
So,
more about what this actually is.
so it all stems from trauma, and especially in the first 3 years of life, that is when your brain is growing most rapidly. And
Mhm.
really, right after you're born, that is when you learn about how to trust other people. You cry, and someone comes and brings you a bottle, or changes your diaper, or helps you regulate in some way. And usually, when you pick up a crying baby, you don't just set them on the diaper table. You usually snuggle with them a little bit, try to get them to calm down, and then you put them and you talk to them and things like that. That is showing them that they can trust other people. So if they're neglected or abused in that first 3 years of life, they start to live in fight or flight at all times. They'll cry, they'll cry, they'll cry. Nobody comes. They'll cry, they'll cry, they'll cry. Maybe somebody will come, but they can't trust anymore. So they don't attach to anybody. And that's the hardest part. Also, the fact that their brain is stuck in fight or flight, it takes like 2 seconds for them to go from 0 to 60. They're happy 1 minute and suddenly just flipping out and throwing things and punching things. And they just can't control it because their body just takes over and those stress
Mhm.
hormones are flying through them and they feel like they're going to die. So it's really challenging to live with a child like
Yeah.
this. And what we need to do is actually rewire the brain and help show them like, or help them get all the stuff they missed before they got to you. So it was a very long learning curve for me, and I'm hoping to shorten it for other people so that they can learn what I've learned and get some resources going right away and maybe not have to go 12 years of living in hell before that happens.
Absolutely. Because if something like that happened to me with a child, I wouldn't even know where to start to look for things. So it's so commendable that you put this together to help people. I truly believe like we're best situated to help people that we were in the past because
Mhm.
you've been there, you've got the story, you're the one that can help walk them through and show them the easier way of doing things. Because if we're always
Yeah.
reinventing the wheel, it's just such a waste of time. It's such a waste of time.
Yeah. So even if it's not reactive attachment disorder, any that early life trauma, if they don't, reactive attachment disorder is like trauma on steroids. And then
Mhm.
there's trauma. So adoption itself is trauma. So any adopted child has trauma that they have to overcome throughout their lifetime. I mean, even if you love your adoptive parents, you still have some kind of little hole in your heart from, why did this person not want me? And it's a
Yeah.
hard thing to overcome. It takes a lot of, sometimes therapy, sometimes discussions, sometimes relationships, but some kids recover from it quickly. Some kids, it barely affects them. And then other kids like mine, woo, it's challenging. So anything in that range of trauma is going to come with those same behaviors. It's just that, the worse the trauma is, the worse the behaviors can be. And again, it depends on the person, because some of us are
Mhm.
wired to handle stress more easily than others. So you just never know who's going to get it and who doesn't. But my advice is, if the parenting books aren't working, give us a try. Just see what we have to say. We approach parenting from a much more positive, relationship based method, so that it's not as important that they comply as that we keep that relationship going. And I do want to add too that my
Yeah.
son is 19 now. He got his GED so he could get out of high school early because he hated being there. He went to trade school. He's got a job in recording arts. He's at Red Rocks today, which is like his coveted job. So, he's really happy. And things are different. He's now on our board for Trauma Drama University because he said, "Mom, we need to help other families because I was he said, I was ready to be one of those school shooters if we had guns in our house." And I was like, wow. And he said, "I am so thankful that you never gave up on me. And now we have to help other
Oh,
people so they don't give up on their kids." So he really turned into such a sweet, amazing kid. And I'm so proud. I feel like we did something right, but it was a long way to get here.
absolutely. You did a lot right, and he knows that. That's why he says that to you. So, that is so cool because I know from personal experience people that have had, um, challenging children that's very sounds reminiscent of a varying level of this, that
Hmm.
did give up on their kids, you know? As soon as they were 18, it was like, I want nothing to do with you, you know? And
Yeah.
just like you said, before, it doesn't even have to be that extreme of trauma. Children that have been through a divorce, children that have been living in a home in a volatile relationship for a long period of time, you may not even realize the impact that that is making on these kids until much later in life.
Hmm.
I realize a
Right.
lot. I very much grew up in a house where, like, my mom and dad were always, always fighting with each other. And it did turn into, my dad being physical, but I have a very same situation with that, with the trauma in your brain. Like, do I still have a very hard time, like, trusting people from things, like really living in that.
Mhm.
Like trust has always been a really hard thing for me because I'm like, those people were supposed to trust each other and I trusted him, or I was supposed to because he was my dad. But this is what happened to that. And I think when that's formed in your brain from such a small age, like I know that has impacted my marriages I've had. I know that's impacted relationships that I've had with men because I have a very difficult time trusting them at all.
Yep.
And it
I'm
is,
a
do you
child.
feel, yeah, and I've been through the therapy and then I like start feeling really good about it and then like that trauma comes back into your head and it comes in waves. Do you feel, I'd love to get your opinion. Do you feel like when there has been childhood trauma, whether that's emotional or physical things, do you feel like people are ever truly able to heal from that? Or it's a way you have to learn to cope with it?
I think it's a little of both. There are some ways that you can rewire your brain, and it really can help you overcome the trauma. Like EMDR is a good one. That is eye
Yeah.
movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's basically using both sides of your body and brain. You can do it in a tapping method. You can do it, in a, I don't know, different methods of
I
doing.
had like little pulse things that I did because I did that
Yeah.
therapy too.
And I know
Yeah.
somebody who did it with like something on the TV screen that was moving. And so there's
Mm.
all different ways to do that. But basically, the EMDR is to mimic your REM sleep. So that's when you process all your emotions. And as you probably know, with trauma, you're not sleeping. So you're not getting that REM sleep and you're not processing those feelings. And so they'll just build up over time. And any trauma in the body or in the any trauma comes out in the body. So you're going to
Yeah.
have, different symptoms, migraines, or I have fibromyalgia from all the stress, and it's very challenging.
Yeah, it will come out in physical stuff. I was just recording a podcast earlier in the week and we were talking about the topic of anger and
Mhm.
frustration. And the person that I was interviewing is does a lot with human design. And we were talking about being in alignment and stuff and what that does when you're not, based upon like
Mhm.
human design stuff. And I was like, it's so interesting because for high performers or high achievers, whatever you want to refer to it as, a lot of times when they're out of alignment, it comes out as frustration. Their anger
Mhm.
is frustration. But they both mean the same thing, really.
Right. Well, and that also adds
But
to other health problems, like
yeah,
heart disease and certain types of cancer. You can be so wired for stress that you're open to so many diseases. So it's really important that we learn to control that. I was going to add that I was a child of divorce myself. I
mm,
wasn't reactive like my son was, but I realized in family therapy that I had a lot of trauma. I just manifested it differently. So my son's was reactive, mine was like people pleasing and perfectionism.
mhm.
So I never thought of myself as a trauma kid. I thought of myself as the good kid, and I was always doing what I was supposed to. And that's another trauma reaction. It's just a different type. So it's very
Yeah.
interesting. It can come out different ways with different kids.
Yes, and a lot of times I know women in this community can relate to this. They'll pour themselves so much into work and the achievement basis of things of like, if I do this, people will love me, especially if they didn't feel that, as a child.
Yeah,
So that's definitely where mine has went. Like, I just got to work all the time. If I'm not, I got to keep myself busy. I got to be doing all of these things. And that really is coming the
that's actually a
manifestation of that trauma too.
workaholism is actually a flight response. So instead of dealing with your issues, you dive into work. So I
Yeah.
realized that I had that really a lot throughout my life,
Yep.
and I'm trying to overcome it now. But yeah, you can overcome it. The other thing I was going to say, aside from EMDR, is neurofeedback can be really helpful for rewiring the brain. So if you're not into talk therapy, and a lot of people are really uncomfortable with that, just try some neurofeedback, because you can do that while you're just passively watching TV, and somehow it rewires the brain. It's a really cool process, lots of discussion around it, so I won't get into too much detail, but it's a great solution. And a lot of times it's covered by insurance, or at least mostly.
Interesting. Give me like the high level. What is that?
So neurofeedback is training the brain. So what they do is they put a cap on your head and they test. They put little thingies on, glue thingies on, so you have like glue in your hair when you're done. But they test your brain first to see where all the trauma is, and it's really interesting. They can see a picture of the brain, and where there's they'll do a rainbow of color, right? So green and yellow is like normal. Blue, I think, was anxiety, and red was depression, or vice versa. I think red was anxiety and blue was depression. I don't know. Anyway,
Mhm.
after they did my brain, it was literally half red, half blue. Like, oh, no wonder I'm crazy. But but they figured out where the main issues were, and we started treating that with the neurofeedback. So they put these little thingies on your head in the specific spots they pick, and you can either watch TV, or, this sounds weird, you can play a video game with your brain. And so you're watching the screen, and if you just choose like Netflix, you can watch Netflix, but the screen is dark, and the you can't hear it as well. But when your brain waves get into the sweet spot where they want them to be, the screen brightens and it gets louder, and your brain goes, oh, okay, when I do that, it goes to this. So over time, it takes several sessions, like 25 to 50 sessions, probably, maybe more. But it can totally rewire your brain so that you'll feel differently, you'll sleep better, you won't be so anxious. I went for
Wow.
one round, so I did like one round. I need probably like two more, because I had a lot of trauma, but um,
Yeah.
there is a copay that I can't afford right now. So we're going to keep going at a slower pace, but we're all going to get there.
Yeah.
And we're still all
Yeah.
healing trauma, but my son is doing amazing now. So he's, yeah, he's still, he's 19. So sometimes he's still really annoying, but I can't decide if that's trauma anymore or just teenager.
That's true. That is true. Oh my gosh. Well, this has been such a wonderful conversation, and totally, like I said at the beginning, not something that we typically talk about on the podcast, but I'm loving so much being able to get into these conversations of women that are running incredible service-based business. Yours is definitely a heart service based
Hmm.
business that is giving people resources to live their best lives. And in their
Yeah.
darkest times, sadly, they may be coming to you, but them being able to see you. And it's so cool that your son is on the board as a shining example of, like, if you stick with this is a possibility. Because I think that's what
Yes.
women need more than anything, is that they need to see what is possible with things,
Hmm.
whether it's a
Well,
parenting situation like you went through, building a business, getting through a divorce, or, finding the love of your life. It's one of those things that we need to show and talk about more often. So thank you for
mhm.
being vulnerable with your story and telling that.
Thank you. I figured that if I didn't speak up and nobody else wants to speak up, then nobody's ever going to get help. So I just really, I do not want anybody to live through what we did, and I'd love to give them hope. Reactive attachment disorder, you'll hear about on a lot of crime podcasts. It's
Oh,
often one of the hardest things to recover from, but that's another reason why we're so committed, because we actually healed from it, and can give hope to people who get that diagnosis, so that they don't go, oh, well, I guess he's just going to end up in prison. So,
yeah. We don't want our babies going to prison. No.
no, no, we
So
don't.
thank you. You know what? And I know that we've all been in situations where you're like, that's it. I'm done. I've had enough. I can't take anymore. Um, and a lot of the times that is a result of us feeling like we're helpless. And
Mm-hmm.
so having those resources available is so incredibly important. So I will make sure that I link your website in the show notes. The wonderful journal from Amazon, we'll put that on there too. A link to your podcast, because that sounds like something that would be really great for people to listen to. Sometimes you just need to know that you're not alone, you know?
Yes.
Sometimes you need to
Mm-hmm.
be able to share, even if you're silently listening to someone else's story, you're still participating with them because it's
Mm-hmm.
helping you understand what is going on. So that is really nice. And then you mentioned something about a gift shop for holiday shopping. Is that through your stuff? Tell us what that is.
We do. We also have a gift shop. That the purpose of our gift shop is not just to raise money for our nonprofit, because all of our resources are free except our brand new $10 membership per month, which you don't have to do. So we're trying to keep it affordable. My husband and I went $100,000 in debt to help our son, and we both had professional jobs. So I just don't know what we would do if, one of us worked in the grocery store, drove a bus or something. I'm like, there's no way we could have afforded this. So I wanted to get resources out there that were free. And then
Mm.
our gift shop, I'm wearing my little sweatshirt today. We have these cute Christmas sweatshirts out now. But the trauma heart, we're hoping, becomes the symbol for childhood trauma, like the puzzle piece was for autism. So that,
Yeah.
when you wear the trauma heart, you're showing your support for healing childhood trauma.
Oh,
So lots of cool stuff. I have a great Christmas ornament in there. I have the fun holiday shirts. We have trauma drama merch. We have lots of tools for parents out there. So yeah, and fun gifts too, candles and things with inspirational sayings on them. They don't all say trauma on them, so you can shop there and find some cool things and shop knowing you're doing good for the planet.
yes, you're helping a very amazing organization. Thank you so much for that. And they're all
Yeah.
over social media too, so we'll make sure that we link that up. So, one last question that I always have for all my guests, Gina, is I love the way that people relate to the phrase of the title of this show. So, I am really interested in letting women know that there's not one path to success, letting women know that there are seasons in life and we go up and we go down. And your story is a beautiful example of that. And there are times where we are kicking ass, and sometimes we feel like we're getting our ass kicked.
Oh yeah.
And so I always find this very interesting. If I were to ask you what the phrase ladies kicking ass means to you, what would you say?
I would say being your authentic self and doing good for the world, because I feel like if we could all be more positive, the world will be a much nicer place for all of us.
Yes, that kindness and positivity goes a very long ways. I love it.
Hmm.
Thank you so much for your time today, Gina. This has been so enlightening and so helpful to, I know, every mom that is listening to this, because we all sometimes feel like we're on an island, and you never are. And that's the purpose of this community, and having women like you in it and be a part of Ladies Kickin' Ass is what makes it so encompassing of everyone that's out there, because everyone needs somebody to help them, because we weren't meant to do this life by ourselves. So thank you.
Nope. Nope. Thank you.
Thanks for being part of the Ladies Kickin' Ass community. Cheers to all you badass women out there. Keep rocking your power, igniting your fire, and making waves in the service industry. If you loved today's episode, please do me a quick favor. Take a screenshot, post it, and tag us at Ladies Kickin' Ass. Be sure to include the link to your favorite episode. Your support in spreading the word means the world to us as we aim to empower even more women. Hit that subscribe button to stay tuned for more kick-ass episodes. And don't forget, a 5-star review is the ultimate high five. Connect with us on social media. All the links are in the show notes. Thank you for being part of our tribe. Now go kick some serious ass, lady. Hey there, ladies. Want to supercharge your personal growth journey with insights from the best in the business? I've got a treat for you. I have been raving throughout many of these podcasts about this incredible self development app called Growth Day. Imagine learning from industry powerhouses like Mel Robbins, Ed Milet, my girl Lori Harder, Brendan Burchard, Mel Abraham, Lisa Bilyeu. Oh my gosh, there's so many more. And guess what? Every Wednesday, they teach live that you can watch them and interact with them through this app. It's so incredibly cool. Beyond their wisdom and live coaching sessions, there is another incredible feature that I am obsessed with, though the journal section. I use it every single day, whether it's either to brain dump, reflect on my feelings, remember things for my business, or dive deep with their brilliant journal prompts. I'm never at a loss for words when I sit down to journal. How freaking amazing is that? And because you're part of our podcast family, there's a special treat awaiting you. Click the link in the show notes below to check it all out. Embark on an incredible journey with Growth Day. Remember, every new day is an opportunity to grow, reflect, and evolve. And that is what we do as ladies who are kicking ass.